As the image of a menacing-looking bush baby crossed his mind again, Odili ran even faster. The hair on his body stood as he realized that he could now hear the footsteps of something behind him, chasing him. This only made him run even faster. He kept sprinting like his life depended on it. Eventually, he ended up at the banks of the famous Mermaid River. Odili and the Mermaid Queen. Once upon a time, in the harmonious and prosperous village of Ogaga, the citizens of Agaga lived like a family. Everybody knew each other, and peace reigned over the village like it was their king. Ogaga's abundant resources made the village blossom with a kaleidoscope of professions. Fishermen lived harmoniously with market women, hunters, weavers, dye makers, and priests. The supreme rulers of Ogaga village were the three elder priests, and together they were called the voice of the gods. The three elderly priests were in charge of appeasing the gods on behalf of Ogaga village and its people. The voice of the gods were also called Osha, a word roughly translated to the chosen one in Ogara, the language spoken by the people of Ogaga. The most important festival in Ogaga village was the Oshu festival, a festival performed as a commemoration of the sacrifices offered to the queen of the river, the mother of all that live and breathe in the river. The prosperity of Ogaga village was attributed to the blessings bestowed upon the people of Ogaga by the queen of the river. The queen of the river was the most beautiful mermaid in the river, and she was revered as the most powerful deity in Ogaga kingdom. Every year, the citizens of Ogaga would gather the best of their harvests, fruits, and fattest cows and offer them to the queen of the river and her many children. During the day of the festival, the villagers would dance, rejoice, eat, and drink, while singing praises of the river goddess, the most powerful mermaid in the 7 rivers of Ogaga kingdom. However, no matter how joyous and excited the villagers were during the festival, there was one commandment that was not to be broken. No human was allowed to set eyes on the queen of the river or any of her many children when they came out to play at night. For this reason, any party or celebration must end before the dusk. This rule was applied all year round, and for this reason, no one was allowed to fetch water or go to the river at night. At the end of every festival, a multitude of gifts were left at the bank of the river, while the villagers went home on their merry way. For many decades, this was the way the people of Agaga lived. Odili was a young hunter who was loved and highly respected by everyone in the village. Odili started hunting at a very young age and was the best hunter the people of Agaga had ever seen. Odili hunted all types of animals. For Odili, no game was too big or too small to hunt. Odili made a living by selling the spoils of his hunt to merchants who sold to villagers who made bags, medicine, and so on. Odili was very prosperous and never lacked anything that money could buy. Unfortunately, Odili had one atrocious trait that sometimes made him unlikable. He was very proud and stubborn. He was used to breaking the rules on purpose, sometimes, and getting away with it. He had an absolute belief in his charms and the powers he inherited from his father before he died. However, his kindness towards the weak and poor citizens of Agaga made him much loved in Agaga. Odili was not married and he did not have kids. When he was asked when he would get married, he always answered, "I am married to hunting. Hunting is my life." Agaga was filled with many beautiful young women, but none of them had ever caught Odili's eyes. One fateful day, Odili set out to hunt as usual. He carried along his Dane gun and cutlass and wore his vest imbued with many charms and amulets. He waved his friends and neighbors goodbye, smiling as he ventured into the thick Ogaga forest. The path into Ogaga forest was treacherous and difficult, but Odili knew the forest like the back of his palm. Odili knew exactly where to find the colony of any animal he was on the hunt for. The animals rotated their grazing or hunting ground every hunting season, but Odili always had no problem finding his prey. However, this day was different. Odili had been in the forest since morning, and now it was getting dangerously close to dusk. And he still had not had any kill yet. He was ready to quit searching, but his pride did not let him give up just yet. Instead, he continued to venture deeper into the forest, reaching parts of the forest he had never reached before. Eventually, Odili decided to give up and go back home. That was when he realized that he had gone too far. Using all the skills and techniques he had, Odili began tracing his way back to the village. However, the moon had set and it hid patiently behind dark clouds. It peeked at Odili and watched his futile efforts to find his way back home. Just when he was on the edge of giving up for the night and trying to find his way in the morning, he began to hear growling noises. Fear gripped Odili, and he immediately took to his heels. He was trained to hunt animals, not spirits of the forest. While his charms would likely keep him safe against certain spirits, it was hard to determine which spirits he would encounter. He was especially afraid of the infamous bush baby that carried its mat around as it cried and sought its next victim. It was rumored that anyone caught by the bush baby would be dragged into a tree where they would live the rest of their lives as slaves until they were eventually eaten. As the image of a menacing-looking bush baby crossed his mind again, Odili ran even faster. The hair on his body stood as he realized that he could now hear the footstep of something behind him, chasing him. This only made him run even faster. He kept sprinting like his life depended on it. Eventually, he ended up at the banks of the famous Mermaid river. In front of him was a path that led away from the river, but there was something else in front of him. There was a mermaid in the distance. She was just stepping out of the water and scanned the area with her eyes to see if there was anyone around. Odili quickly hid in a bush nearby and recited some incantations to stay undetected by a supernatural being like the mermaid by the river. Watching from his cover, Odili saw the woman remove her fish skin and tail, which she then hid behind a tree close to the river. The mermaid eventually put on regular clothes like any other human and ran towards the village. Odili came out of his cover and ran to where the mermaid hid her skin and tail. He quickly packed them and hid them somewhere in the forest, under a large iroko tree. He quickly sprinted back to the bank of the river to wait for the mermaid to return. He had a plan in mind. After a few hours, the mermaid returned to where she hid her skin and tail in an attempt to return to the river. However, when she looked for it, where she had kept it, to her dismay, it was not there. She screamed so loud that the birds of the sky and the fishes of the sea felt the shiver in their bones. The hunter came out of his hiding place and pointed his gun at her. Standing this close to the mermaid made Odili see her very well for the first time, and she was beyond beautiful. Her beauty was ethereal, as it looked like something that was out of this world. Her long hair was in locks and had fish-like ornaments attached to them. Her eyes were endearing, and her skin was like cocoa butter. Odili became wide-eyed. He told her that he was the one who took her skin and asked her to tell him who she was. She revealed that her name was Yewa, and she was the queen of the river. She told him that she comes out of the river once every full moon to grant the villagers their wishes. Odili nodded and asked that she grant him his wishes if she wished to stay alive. The queen of the river told Odili he could ask for 3 wishes and 3 wishes alone. Odili began. My first wish is that you become my wife. My second wish is that you make me the richest person in all of the 7 kingdoms. My last wish is that you grant me the spiritual power to become the most powerful man in all the 7 kingdoms. Are you sure that these are your wishes? Queen Yewa asked. Yes, I am very sure. Queen Yewa closed her eyes and muttered a few words to herself. The sky turned grey and lightning struck several nearby trees, followed by the sound of heavy thunder. Your wish has been granted. Now return my skin and tail so I can go back to the river. Odili laughed and told Queen Yewa that he never said he was going to return her skin and tail. He only asked her to grant him wishes. Odili forced Queen Yewa back to the village, and when he arrived at his hut, everywhere was overflowing with gold coins, gold kettles, bags of cowries, and gold jewelry. Odili had suddenly become the richest person in all 7 kingdoms. He officially married Queen Yewa in a lavish wedding ceremony and built a very large compound for himself. Odili was so rich that he started giving out cowries and gold daily to villagers in need. He was the envy of all 7 kingdoms. He had money and he had the most beautiful wife in all the kingdoms. What more could he want? But Odili wanted more. One day, Odili went to the palace where the voice of the gods, the Osha, lived and demanded that they move out of the palace. Odili was a fearsome fighter, but his newly found magical powers made him a formidable opponent. Odili sent everyone in the palace packing and crowned himself the new king of Agaga. He claimed the village was not prosperous enough and that only he could make the village of Agaga as powerful and prosperous as it should be. King Odili, as it was now called, slowly but steadily became a tyrant king. While his love for helping people didn't seem to waver, anyone who opposed him was immediately banished. Odili was so powerful that even Queen Yewa could not do anything to stop him. While the village of Agaga became very prosperous and powerful, the people were not as happy as they used to be. They no longer celebrated the Oshu festival, as the queen of the river now lived and walked among them. Fish became scarce in Ogaga village, and fishermen stopped fishing. Many people resorted to farming and hunting. King Odili, however, was blind to all these new developments. To him, all that mattered was that Ogaga was the most prosperous and powerful village in all the kingdoms. Eventually, King Odili became bored of Queen Yewa and began taking in new wives. He married 7 new wives from all the 7 kingdoms, including his own. King Odili was the most powerful king they had ever seen. The village of Agaga went into battle constantly and they never took any prisoners. While gold flowed on the streets of Agaga village, so did blood, sorrow, and sadness. King Odili had become a tyrant king, blinded by greed and a thirst for power. Queen Yewa had always been kind to all the other queens that King Odili married, and this made her very loved in the palace and throughout the village. But the sadness of being unable to go back to see her children in the river haunted her and made her very pale. On one fateful night, while King Odili was very drunk, he told one of his queens where he hid Queen Yewa's skin and tail. He told her that even though she thought it was still somewhere in the forest, he already moved it from there and buried it at the back of the palace about 12 moons ago. The queen that King Odili unknowingly confessed to ran to meet Queen Yewa and told her where to find her skin and tail. Queen Yewa was joyous on hearing this news. She quickly ran to the back of the palace to unearth her skin and tail. She wore her skin and tail and transformed back into the powerful river goddess that she was. Her scales glistened against the sun and her aura returned to its full glory. When King Odili woke up, he saw Queen Yewa in her full glory, and she was as beautiful as she was fearsome. She had sharp teeth, glowing eyes, and a golden spear. Her tail was a combination of black and gold scales. Queen Yewa gave the other queens large bags of cowries and several bags of gold and asked them to return to their families. Queen Yewa stripped King Odili of all his powers and money and dissolved their marriage. She told him that he abused the power and wealth that was granted to him and didn't deserve any of it. Lastly, she cursed him with blindness and said, "No matter how beautiful this kingdom becomes, you will not be able to see it." Odili immediately became blind, and because he was such a tyrannous king, nobody was willing to help him. Odili eventually became a beggar on the streets of Agaga. His story became a cautionary tale to other kings on the dangers of greediness and the hunger for absolute power. It was told as a tale to remind people that no matter how rich or powerful a person becomes, if they become too greedy or hungry for power and fame, it will surely bring them down, and the consequences may be severe, so severe that they may never recover from it. Even though Odili used to be a good man, his actions in the end made him an unforgivable monster. Queen Yewa returned to the river and blessed the river once again with fish and other sea life. However, neither Queen Yewa nor any of her children ever came out of the river to grant wishes to humans ever again, even to this day. The end. We hope you enjoyed the story you just watched. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video, as it helps us create more videos like this for you to enjoy. Thank you.